Thanks for tuning in to more NASCAR talk. No Eric Smith on the Prime Sports Network. Just CJ Radoon and Greg DePalma, but I got Eric and his Race Review Online logo there. I did myself. I painted it myself. Eric is actually at the track. He's at Indianapolis, right?
Yes, he is. Roman Grosjean doing his first laps at Indianapolis with his new team, Andretti Autosport, taking over for Ryan Hunter-Reay next season. And Jimmy Johnson is joining him there. And both of them are going through the rookie test. They were out on track earlier today. Had some rain, had to come off, but about, an hour before our show time, they got it dry. And Eric goes back to watching Indy cars go around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So lucky him.
So that's for what? That's for next year?
Rookie test for next year.
I mean, the sport is just combined to the NASCAR IndyCar series. The things they do differently is just blow my mind. It's just you can't even get NASCAR to do testing, and IndyCar is doing testing, 8 months before a race.
Exactly right.
Just weird.
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of weird, unfortunately, we had, again, one of the best races we had snatched away from us this season because of the weather. And the Xfinity race went off okay. So couldn't have thought about maybe moving the race into Saturday or something like that. But I guess they felt Monday was better. And then, of course, it ended under the rain. So, yeah. I hate these races. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. What I don't understand, and I will never understand until I get a driver on this show and I ask him point blank, how do you get excited about winning races like this? I don't understand it. I don't mind you smile and you shake someone's hand and, I don't mind that. But acting like, you won the Daytona 500 when you didn't even win a fair race. I don't understand why drivers do it. I just don't. I mean, and it's so funny because a lot of times these drivers win this. It's always these obscure drivers too. Like when Logano did it for the first time, he was a nobody at the time. Well, they know who he was, but he had never won a race before. I think, who else have we seen? Did Busch win
Busch?
Okay.
Buescher, Justin Haley. I mean, the list goes on. You're exactly right. And I think a lot of it, we've seen the veterans and the successful guys do it too. Sure. But the joy and the excitement, and like you said, to the level of winning the Daytona 500, I think that is a result of the fact that it is the obscure guys. Bubba Wallace isn't obscure. We were talking about this before. I mean, if you've been listening to us, you knew Bubba Wallace had the talent and he could go out there and win a race if he had the right equipment, especially at a place like Talladega. Of course, he goes out and does it. So that's why he's there. But being that it's his first race, he's been in the series for a long time, big relief off of his shoulders. Same thing with Buescher, same thing with Haley. But the ones that we've got to talk to are like the Kevin Harvicks, the Truexes, the Blaneys, and ask them point blank, why do you get excited about winning a race under rain? I can understand it's your first one, and it's not likely, but you've won races. Where does this rank in terms of races won, and why are you celebrating it like you do? I agree. I cannot stand the rain ending races. And when I was watching it Monday as well, I had it on in the background. Of course, I have a regular job that I have to work as well, so I was watching it in the background, and it was remarkable to me at a place like Talladega, where it's so famous for its camping out and people being there all weekend, how empty it was, not just in the stands, but in the infield as well. So many spots were open. So many people were gone. How do you think that this is a good deal for any of those people that spent the money, spent the weekend coming out and camping out? How do you think that leaves them feeling? It's terrible. And plus
another reason.
So Monday working.
Another reason why they need their own network. Because if they
totally agree.
The contracts, definitely there has to be stipulations in there regarding weather. We reserve the right that if there's a weather issue and we believe that we have a better chance of moving the race up on Saturday as opposed to getting wiped out on Sunday and having nobody there on Monday, We are going to move the race on Saturday, and we're going to put it on we're going to offer you the opportunity to put it on your network first. But if you say no, then it goes on our network. And we put it on our network, and the fans that were there on Saturday get to enjoy both an Xfinity race and a NASCAR race at the same time. And what about some freaking lights at Talladega? Okay? Because if you're going to get a race at a racetrack nowadays, you have to have lights. I mean, come on. I mean, that's another reason they didn't race, because they knew the window because of they had no lights. But if you had lights, you could have sat there for 6-7 hours until it dried up and then ended the race.
Yeah, exactly right. And actually, the Xfinity race ended because of the lack of lights. So I think that one was like 7 laps short, if I'm not mistaken. So
how did they
Talladega.
What did they do? They just all of a sudden, like the rain, just like stopped everybody. Caution! Oh, nobody can see, and they just stopped it. Or were they already in a caution?
When it's coming down to light, and that's the driving factor as to why they're going to end the race early, they do give the teams a certain number of laps
there
notice.
You go.
So they give a heads up.
Same thing that we talked about with the other thing they could do. Look, it's going to be a tight window today. As soon as we get to the required lap, it's over. So, guys, you're not going to go, 100 and 200 laps. You're going to go 100. And that's it. I know it's 100 short, but we'd rather everybody know when the end of the race is going to be than to end it this way. That's another option they could have played with. And why didn't they?
Totally agree. That lets strategy play out. And arguably, that even takes it a step further than what they did with the Xfinity race, because it's only a handful of laps. Like, you need to know before you go into the race so that you can set your strategy. And so everybody knows going into and what they're fighting for, so everybody's on a fair page. Otherwise, if you decide, even if it's 7 laps from the end, your bet is made at that point. You've got no opportunity. You were racing for the end. 7 laps could make a difference to you, crashes, whatever your strategy, fuel mileage, etc. So that is even a step further than what they did with and do under just light conditions alone. But yeah, Talladega being around for so long, not having lights is a strange thing. Martinsville got lights, right?
And again, if you're going to have that, then you have these other, backup plans in place. They don't know what to do.
Yep.
And then it's a playoff race. And how many drivers, especially the guys that, I don't know exactly who it screwed completely. Maybe Kevin Harvick, who knows? But I'm sure it screwed even a couple of drivers that are on the plus side that are going into this race this week, realizing I got no chance on a road course. I really felt my best chance was to win at Talladega or to finish in the top 5 or 10 at Talladega. They didn't have a chance. It's like, that's totally not right. It's just bad. It's bad for the sport. And I don't know. Looking at the standings right now, the good thing is that even the drivers that are out of the playoffs, maybe Harvick is the one that's probably the worst off. I think so. Because we know Bell can win. We know Byron and Bowman have had at least decent showings at a road course and at this racetrack, so they have a shot. Of course, it all depends on Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson crashing, but if you get them out of the way, like if they screw up a pit stop, if something happens, and both of them are out of the race, then any of these other drivers have a pretty decent chance. So I think that's at least the saving grace, that there are drivers on the outside that can win this race.
Yeah, oddly enough, I think despite the fact that he had a good race and was actually performing above the expectations, certainly that I had of him for Talladega, I do think Kevin Harvick is the one that comes off the worst. He probably could have won. He had one of the fastest cars. He probably would have been in the battle for the lead in the final laps. And as the points shake out, yeah, Alex Bowman and William Byron finished way down the order, but they both could easily come back at Charlotte. Harvick, he's just been off at these types of tracks all year. He's behind the cut line, despite the fact that he had another good race. So he's got to help. He's got to hope that somebody ahead of him, which, looking at the names ahead of him, I'm not sure who's going to have a very bad race. It can't be Hamlin or Larson. It's got to be somebody closer to him. So it's going to be really tough for him. Bell could easily come out. He's already won on the road course this year as well. So Harvick definitely the going into this weekend.
If something happens to Larson's car, anything early in the race, could he miss out on the next round? Seven people would have to surpass him in the points, and you're getting all the way down at that point to Harvick, who is 20 some points behind. So the possibility of that happening, it'd have to be like the first lap, and everybody ahead of him would have to finish in the top 10 and get stage one. Probably. Yeah.
It's not likely at all. I think Harvick is supremely on the bubble. Obviously, we know Bell, Byron, and Bowman are all basically in must-win situations. Harvick is the one, and Kyle Busch might slip down there. I really think it's between Kyle Busch and Harvick, and then if a William Byron, Christopher Bell, or Alex Bowman comes up and wins, then it gets really interesting.
Could Larson's points have changed much if the race would have continued on Monday?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Hendrick cars and Chevrolet were actually doing pretty well. He was still running. So let's see, he was 2 laps behind Byron and DiBenedetto when the caution came, or when the rain came out and the race was stopped. He was only 2 laps further behind all the way up to everybody. So I mean, if the race continues, he gets caught back up, or at least sucked into the pack, and he's able to maintain pace. Another caution, I think his points could have shifted pretty significantly.
And what if his car probably wrecked again?
If his car wrecked again, then he's out, and we're in the same situation as
he
the
wouldn't
rain
have
happened.
He couldn't have lost
a lot
of points.
He would have made up at least 3 positions, even if he would have wrecked. So there's extra points that come in. But I think he probably could have made up 5 to 10 points if it had gone all the way to the end and he was able to hang on to the draft.
It sounds like a really silly rule that he comes in, got something with the car, and I'm talking about any driver, and just referencing what happened to Larson. You come out, you cause the caution, and you get another 6 minutes to work on the car. And you're doing this from crew chiefs who repeatedly cheat. So you don't think they may be going, look, we got to work on this car a little bit longer. We're going to send you out with a tire that's going to last about 5 seconds. So just hold on. But we'll get those additional 6 minutes.
Yep. Make sure you hit that initial speed. So the unknown in them doing that, the gamble in them doing that, is that in order to reset the clock, you have to hit minimum speed, which he did. So the tire held on that 1 lap in order to enable him to do it. And it was literally 1 lap, if I'm remembering correctly. And then boom, and he was around again and brought out the caution and got the other 6 minutes.
That you can actually get, it helps you if you bring out the caution again. Okay, so the Roval, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because we've seen a lot of pretty dull road course races this season, but the Roval can be a good one compared to the others, correct? There's some action at this track.
I like this Roval more than the others because it's more condensed. But then in Indianapolis Motor Speedway Roval. So Indianapolis is great because you can get some pretty good speed going down the front straightaway into that first turn, and then also on the back straightaway. And obviously, if you've got curbs there, you can have the cars actually go into the air like super trucks as well. But I like the Roval because of the elevation changes. There aren't infield road courses that I'm aware of anywhere else that have significant elevation changes, almost like Sonoma. It's not as severe as Sonoma, but it really mimics the ups and downs and twists and turns and blind corners of a natural terrain road course like a Road America or a Sonoma or Watkins Glen, which I think makes this one much more intriguing. Plus the fact, if you couple that with the fact that it is condensed and cars don't get entirely stretched out, or the field doesn't get entirely stretched out, and the fact that it's a cutoff race, you do get the chance for bumping and banging. So being, as close as it is in the points, and people really hungry to be able to make it through to the final 8, they're going to be in contact with each other, and I think we're going to see some exciting passing, hopefully.
Especially around that one turn, right? There's usually a lot. What turn is that, by the way? That turn that everybody kind of gets in trouble?
The one, you mean the one coming onto the front straight where they wheel hop into it and then bang into 3 cars ahead of them?
Sometimes you could be in first and you just still end up like on the rail.
The 5th place kills you from behind,
So I'd love it to see. I would just love it if, look, I don't want to, even though we all have money on Larson, it's the only driver we all have money on, I would still love it if Larson was leading and Christopher Bell was second and needed to win. I would just love that scenario, because we all know what he would have to do. He would never be able to let it down if he didn't completely just wreck Kyle Larson out of the way. So,
total payback,
see if that happens. Probably not, because we never get what we want. Okay, so Elliott is the clear favorite, and yes, you guys put more than half your money on, budgeted money on him, which I understand. I just decided that he's probably going to have a good enough car to just not have to win. Plus, he's going to have to win a 3rd straight race. It's very difficult to win 3 straight races anywhere. That I'd rather put half my money on Larson. So, and I didn't want to put him on both of them. I know I could, but to me, I just don't really, as you know, I'm not into just even, maybe once in a while I'll do it, but I'm not into just breaking even. And that's kind of what you'd have to almost do if you're going to put money on Elliott and Larson. So I kind of skipped on Elliott, but went with Larson, and we all went with Larson. And I'm a little bit surprised he's got 4-1, because it's almost like they're looking at the last 2 races that Larson had at this track, and that's, as we know, that's a completely different Larson and car. So it means nothing. So I actually thought Larson would have been like, I get it, Elliott's won 2 races, so he's got to be the favorite, but I thought Larson was going to be 3-1 or shorter.
I expected the same thing as well. I think it's short-term memory. People have forgotten. They are looking at the past statistics, particularly at this track where he hasn't been great. But on road courses in general, he hasn't been great until this year. And I said the last road course, or maybe the one before that if he does it again, one time can be a fluke. If he comes out and performs like he did that time again on the next road course, then I'm in. And he did that. So you got to remember that. You got to remember how he was on the last couple of road courses this season. And you have to throw away past year statistics. It's a completely different driver, different team, different position in the standings. Everything is different now. Plus the fact that the past two road courses, if not more, for him this season have been particularly good at the level, if not above, Chase Elliott for sure.
What would you consider is Daytona the closest similar make out, because it's a speedway turned into a road course as this race? Would you necessarily look at Daytona's history and this track's history, or would you kind of look at Sonoma or another track?
Honestly, I feel like now that it's been on the calendar, from a layout perspective, it looks a lot like Daytona. Same concept. Daytona doesn't have the elevation changes, and Daytona's a lot longer. So you get the cars in the field much more spread out. Like I said, it's compact here. It's got the elevation and the blind turn. So you got to think more like a Sonoma, where it's kind of short squirts versus a long flowing Watkins Glen. So to me, I'm looking at Sonoma in particular because I know the corners in there. I know the hills and I know the blind corners. It's the same type of skill set that will make you successful at both tracks. And obviously, Larson did quite well there.
Okay, Truex is next at 7-1. He's only led 6 laps at this racetrack, though, and he's never had a top 5. And I'm just not really feeling it right now with Truex. And nobody is feeling it with Truex because nobody put money on Truex this week.
I think he's only that high because of his past road course success. Again, people have the short-term memory problems. He's just not been there this season. Elliott and Larson have both upstaged him on every road course, and Bell even upstaged him on every road course so far this season. And I throw away Circuit of the Americas. I brought that up when I was looking at who to choose this week in terms of how they've performed this season, but I had to throw it away because of the rain and the weather, and that was just such an off race for so many reasons. And Truex just hasn't been there. Just once out of all the rest of the road course races, and we've had a lot so far this year, was he even remotely competitive from my perspective. Certainly not the Martin Truex that we knew of past seasons on road courses.
He was like the best driver just a year ago.
He was the one that would have entered this weekend 2-1 without a doubt. Like you said, not having even a top finish here, it's scary. You know, he's going to be racing for points for sure. He's going to want to be able to get himself through. His average finish is 9.3 from 3 races. That's, you know, when he's winning every road course up until, you know, a year or two ago. Yeah, I'm not feeling it either this week.
His teammates, you got Kyle at 11-1, who has been just awful here. I don't know what has gone on. And well, he had the suspension issue and a crash. I don't know what happened last year, but it's just awful. And then Denny Hamlin's never had a top 10 or led a lap.
Yep. Busch did lead 3 laps last year, so he had a little bit of speed. I think for Kyle, it's kind of more of an unknown, and people banking on his history of having his back to the wall and then coming through and finding a way through. I think he'll find a way through. Do I think he's going to win? No, certainly not. When you got Larson and Elliott in the field ahead of you at a place where he's only finished once, and that was a 30th place finish. He did lead 3 laps. Matt. Hamlin, from my perspective, and actually going back to Kyle Busch, before we came on, I went to NASCAR.com, and he's the headline, Kyle Busch, in the main picture. Like, is Kyle Busch going to make it happen this week? Like, no. all signs point to no. Why are you trying to hype him up? Star factor, whatever. But I do think Hamlin is the better choice here, despite the fact that he's never had a top 10 here. Talking about Truex not having a top 5, Hamlin's never even had a top 10 in the 3 races. His average finish is 15.3. Still, look at what he was doing at Indianapolis before he got taken out. So he's been very strong all season. So I have a feeling he's going to be in store for a career day on this track. He'll probably get a personal highest finish at on the Roval this week for himself.
Okay, and then
But
what was that?
I don't think it's going to be a win, though.
And then you have Blaney and Byron. And you and I both put some money on Byron. I'm the only one, surprisingly, that I put money on Blaney. And they both performed well here. Out of the 6 combined results, they have 5 top 10s and a win. Blaney won the first race here. He's led 30 laps. In 14 one race, 16 another. And he was second at Indy not too long ago. Byron has been performing better on the road courses as the season has worn on, and he's led 23 laps minimum in the last 2 races at this track. So considering how badly Byron needs to win, I think he's a lock to wager on. And I just think Blaney, in all honesty, I think Blaney should be the 4th choice, not the 6th.
He's definitely not the 6th for me. Blaney, to me, that 2018 win was still somewhat fluky because we had
that was a crazy race, yeah.
So, but that said, he has proven his worth on road courses over recent history. Solid, he's gotten, he's solid. He's a top 10 kind of guy, probably even a top 5 this week. I would venture to guess that he's going to go out and lead laps as well. Where I want to see Blaney on the road courses is taking that next step up to
really
being,
good.
If it's not going to be, exactly, if it's not going to be Elliott or Larson, it should be Blaney. That's where I want Blaney to be before I start taking him on a regular basis. Before that, up until that happens, I'm going to be pretty selective in where I choose him. From a Byron standpoint, though, I think you're nuts and blind if you don't take Byron this weekend. He, like you said, he's led a minimum of 23 laps at this track and in the last 2 races, finished 6th both times. And I went back and, like I said, I looked at all the road course races throughout the season. He has led laps in every single one. Like I said, I threw out Circuit of the Americas, so I didn't even look at that. But he's led a good amount of laps pretty much every single time we're on a road course. So he's stout. And if he can figure out a way with his team to be able to be doing that at the end of the race, I think he's going to be right up there. So I think you're crazy if you don't take
especially because he needs the win. So
that too.
Some of these other drivers might be conservative. We heard what Kyle Larson said a few weeks ago, and he had no reason to be conservative, and he was being conservative. So it could happen. Logano is next at 18-1, and he's also been good here, including runner-up the last time out, and he's had 3 top 5s on the road courses this year, including the runner-up at Daytona. But he's only led 4 laps over his career here. I think he's another one of these drivers, though, that he's just not he's not at the top. He's not peaking. He's been better this year. He hasn't looked like, he's on the verge, and he's like solidly gonna make it to the next round. So all that considered, I just figured, I like the odds, don't get me wrong, but I just figured, you know what, I don't see it unless he just happens to be leading the race, late last quarter of the race, and hey, I'm up front, I might as well win the thing.
That's the exact same situation for me. I think I was looking at him and I had him in my calculations as I was going through, but really wanted to go heavier on Byron because I thought he had more incentive. And like you said, Logano, right now he just needs the consistency to get through to the next round. He's going to be conservative because he needs the points. He's one of those ones that's kind of right there with Harvick. So as long as he outpoints Harvick, he's going to be okay. And that's what he's going to be going for. Like you said, if he's in position to win, rest assured he's going to take advantage of it and go for it. But all the way up until that point, he's going to be racing for points and trying to be conservative and just making sure that he has a good finish. Next round, when we get into the next 3 races, he's got to start being in the top 4, being on the verge if he wants to be in contention when we go to Phoenix.
Bell is next at 20-1, 24th here last year, so that's not good. But this year, not only did he win Daytona, he was second at the Road of America and 7th at Watkins Glen. So we know how strong he is on the road courses. And Eric is the only one to put money on Bell this week.
Yeah, that didn't surprise me. Eric has been a Bell fan on all the road courses so far this year. Like you said, he kind of went through a slump after the win on the road courses, but he's only the one time here he did finish 24th, but he, like Kyle Busch, he led 6 laps at that point, so he did have a way to cycle to the front. He's another guy that's got his back up against the wall and needs to really get something done this weekend, so he's going to be going for it, and he's good on road courses. We know that. I was questioning him at the middle part of the season, but the last couple of road course races, for sure, he's turned it back on, so I'm in the camp as well. Not surprised Eric took him. I didn't have enough money.
Eric is also the only one to put money on Logano. Okay, and then I'm the only one to put money on Bowman, and I did that same reason I put money on Byron. So you see, I basically decided that I was going to put a little bit of money on Byron, Bowman, and Blaney instead of putting it on Elliott. Bowman at 22-1 needs a win. And he's been okay on the road courses this year. Not bad, not great, but interesting enough that you look at it and then you see the fact that he's been 8th or better in all 3 races at this track, 2nd in 2019, and desperate for a win. And Bowman's one of these drivers that can win races when you're just not even thinking he's going to win a race. So I wasn't going to be standing there not holding a ticket when he needs it the most.
Yeah. Yeah, I had him on my list for sure. In fact, he was the last one that I took off before I sent my picks in. The reason I did was because I would have had to have reduced what I had on Byron, and I think Byron, with his laps led, the 23 and 27 in the last two races. Bowman's only led two laps at
Yes.
this track. Yeah, he's in the top 10 every single time, even the runner up in 2019. But those laps led are pretty important, especially on a road course like this. So with just two laps led out of the three, yeah, he's good, but can he get out front there and lead? And by the way, this is going to be his lowest starting position at this track in the three and what will be the four races that he's ever run on here. So he's starting 12th, and he started inside the top five all three other times.
I got a spider on my keyboard here somewhere. He's
Uh-oh.
reasonably
Hope it's not.
big, but enough that he caught my eye. So I'm just hoping he's under my keyboard. So I like spiders.
Yeah.
I just, I don't know which ones actually
Don't
bite
want
you.
him walk.
I'm not
Yeah.
into them, but I don't, anytime I can, I always, make sure I bring them outside. I never kill them. I like the spiders
Yep.
because they eat up all the other insects. So that's
Exactly right. You just
yeah.
don't want them in your bed.
No. And they've been in my bed before, and you wake up and you have these little bites on you, and you're like, I wonder where that came from. So anyway, all right. Yep. So I got my eye on other things here. And then the rest of the drivers, well, Kurt Busch has two top fives at this racetrack. He's 25 to 1. And Kevin Harvick is 28 to 1. He's the only other no, wait. And then the other one is Keselowski at 40 to 1. As far as playoff drivers, Harvick has been 11th or better in 3 races. He led 34 laps in 2019 when he finished 3rd. So if you were going to take Kurt Busch, Harvick, or Keselowski, and definitely based on the odds, which way would you go? Keselowski has one top 5 out of 3 races, and he crashed in his first go around in 2018 after he led 29 laps.
Kurt, hands down. When we're talking about kind of what course this is more similar to, a Sonoma or a Watkins Glen, I said Sonoma. That's where Kurt won his road course race. So he's got 2 top 5s here, so that backs up that kind of style of racing. Plus, it's a shame he's not still in the playoffs because he's been doing a great job since he just had a really crappy first round. I think the car really has pace, and I think that he's genuinely committed to giving Ganassi or sending Ganassi out of the sport on a high. I think he could still do it. So certainly from a fantasy perspective, you got to have Kurt Busch in consideration this week. Harvick's not bad, but just that one anomaly of a 3rd place. Otherwise, it's kind of hung around the top 10, a 9th and an 11th place finish for him. And then for Keselowski, I think we've been talking about him a lot recently. He's just not. He's not there. He's moving on to other things. He's not fantastic on road courses. His best finish was the 5th here in 2019. He did lead 29 laps in 2018, but ended up crashing out and finished 31st. And then his only other finish last year was 18th with 7 laps led. So Keselowski can be there in the top 15, potentially lead some laps, potentially walk away with the top 10, but I just don't see him coming forward and winning. So of the 3, Kurt Busch.
I was surprised that, and I think it was because he finished 2nd last week. I was surprised that his odds moved up in the futures to 10 to 1. I was like, yeah. What? For finishing in 2nd in a rain-shortened race? He hasn't done anything, for like the last couple of months. So
it would be a shock to me to see him in the Final 4 at Phoenix. I just can't see it. I cannot see it happening. I think he and the team, as Eric's been saying, have moved on to other things. I think Talladega was probably their last hurrah. They showed it. Unfortunately, they didn't get to race to the end to be able to really go for the win. But I think that was it. I think that's it for them.
Reddick and Chastain, I think, are also interesting at 40 to 1. That's why I put a little bit of money on Chastain, because even though he's been a little bit quiet the last few weeks, I think he had a nice stretch there, and especially on the road courses towards the end of the season. So I didn't want to lose sight of that. That's why I threw a couple of bucks on him, even though he hasn't fared well at this track. But again, it's not this year. This year he's done well on the road courses, and he does have an Xfinity win at this racetrack leading a minimum of 21 laps in 3 races in the Xfinity Series. Reddick, meanwhile, finished second and ninth in the Xfinity Series, 12th last year in his first Cup Series. So I think Chastain and Reddick are some interesting 40-1 shots to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for me, it's Chastain. I like Reddick. Reddick's been good, more so on the ovals for me. So I think Richard Childress Racing has taken a big step forward in their competitiveness. Reddick's been able to leverage it to his advantage. Great choice again. I think you should consider him from a fantasy perspective. If you're looking for truly somebody that can go out there and win and pull off a surprise win, I do think you're right in Ross Chastain. He's been very solid on road courses, and he's got the sister car of Kurt Busch we just talked about, who's a lock for fantasy rosters from my perspective. So I think if anybody's got more upside potential of the two, it would be Ross Chastain. Reddick should be good, but I do think Ross Chastain just brings that extra little bit to the table.
Yeah, I was surprised. Jones was 125-1 the last road course. Now he's 60-1. And the only thing I can think of is because he finished third in this race last year. I'm not sure why he finished third in this race last year. I don't remember that because I don't even remember the last time he's led a race anywhere. But I just thought that was interesting that his odds were cut in half. And that's the only thing I could think of, right?
That's the only reason I would say, because he's not. So 3 races with Gibbs, probably the best cars that you can get at this track. Best finish of third. He led 1 lap. His other finishes were 30th and 40th. So there's nothing there for me. Kind of a fluke that he finished third.
Okay. Yeah.
But he's with Richard Petty Motorsports now, and yeah, maybe road courses are a little bit. The driver can compensate more for a lack of equipment on a road course type of event, but as we talked about, that gap is significantly smaller than it ever was before because so many of these guys are so good on the road courses now. I just don't think that there's all that much to be gained just by a driver alone who's good on road courses. And Eric Jones, nonetheless, hasn't even proven that he's up to the skill level of an Elliott or a Larson on a road course, or even a Truex at this point.
Yeah, this is like it's interesting because this is just like in Indianapolis, an IndyCar race on a road course as far as the odds, where you've got your little group in front, and then the rest of the field, they really don't have a chance. And
yep.
I mean, really, it's just amazing. I mean, you go from 60-1 to 125-1 on your next. That's a huge drop. Meaning any of those drivers, even realistically, anybody past 40-1 in this race has little to no chance unless there's some sort of freakish thing that happens that puts you out front late. And that's another reason why I'm just not a totally big fan of these types of races. I'm okay with having several more of them instead of just a couple. I think they got carried away this year, especially the scheduling needs to improve and spread them out more. I don't like the way that the schedule is late in the season, 3/4 into the season, where it's road course every other, it seems, for like a couple of months. That just got old fast. But this is it. No more road courses. So this will be the last one.
Yep.
And we will move on to the round of 8 after Sunday. And we'll see, maybe there'll be some dramatics. It's possible. Again, because of the way the race ended on Monday, there's a lot of, there's not, there's not a lot of difference if you do screw up early. If somebody screws up early, it could really change things. And just maybe you don't get knocked out, but you sweat a little bit more. And because we can see some potential wrecks in this race, maybe we'll get some drama.
The good thing about this race, though, is that even if you do have the contact and you have the wrecks, as long as your car is not damaged too badly, you can still be competitive on a road course. So that's a good thing for anybody that has early troubles. Keep that in mind. It's not like a Talladega or a Daytona where it's so dependent on having a pristine car at the end to be able to win. So you can still come back and win. I do think that outside of probably the top 5 or 6 choices, the likelihood of anybody winning, barring some crazy thing. I don't know if it's weather like we had at Circuit of the Americas or some weird NASCAR decision that totally screws the field. I'm really hard pressed to say that anybody aside from those guys right at the top are going to win. And it's exactly like kind of IndyCar and Formula One have become. You can pick the winner. You got basically three choices, and one of those is likely going to get it just about every time you go here.
Probably. So what else is going on that you're covering this weekend on RotoWire?
Just this weekend, we have the Xfinity race. So it's Xfinity and Cup Series are together all the way till the end here. Trucks are done, I think, until Martinsville, if I'm not mistaken. I think they only have 2 more races left. So we'll have fantasy previews for Xfinity and NASCAR, or Cup, I should say, up probably sometime on Friday. And then we'll have a recap of the race, assuming it finishes on Sunday, which it should, because they can run in the rain on a road course. And they do have lights at Charlotte, too. So assuming everything gets done on Sunday, we'll have a race recap, the NASCAR barometer, up on rotowire.com on
and
Monday.
Is there like is AJ the favorite in the Xfinity Series race?
For Xfinity, him or Austin Cindric, both are exceptionally good road course racers. So if you're going to talk about Larson and Elliott in the Cup Series, you're going to be talking about Cindric and Allmendinger in the Xfinity Series.
Is it still wide open for the champion in that series?
Yeah.
How many drivers are in contention?
Right now, I would say, let me bring up the standings here just so I'm not lying to you, but I think nothing is decided because we had Josh Berry win. So yeah, who
won the Talladega race?
Brandon Brown.
Who?
So
Brandon That's some Brown. Weekend. Brandon Brown and Bubba Wallace winning at Talladega.
Exactly. Right. So two races out of the round of 12, or whatever the number is left for them. Yeah, 12. 2 races gone in the round, and nobody's locked in yet. None of the playoff
drivers were winning. Okay.
Exactly right. So, Brandon Brown went to victory lane at Talladega in the light shortened race, and I think that was only shortened by like 7 laps. But the one that's really sweating it out probably is Jeremy Clements down in 12th. He's in a must-win situation. Everybody else is probably within 20, 30 points. Cindric and Allgaier way up at the top, though. There's no way they're falling out.
But really, you got Cindric, AJ, Allgaier. Who else? Gragson you put in there as far as a serious contender? Win a championship?
Gragson, Daniel Hemrick, I would put in. Those are probably the bunch. Yeah, to me, Gregson's in 7th, but he's getting hot at the right time. So that's why I put him up there. But yeah, those 4 or 5, I would say, are the bunch. Yep, or 4. Yep.
All right, CJ. So next week, what's next week?
Next week is Texas.
Oh, and they were at the road course earlier this year, right? So
exactly.
This is the only. How is Texas?
Texas, they shaved the banking of 1 and 2, so that's a little bit shallower. So it's a little bit different than a Charlotte and an Atlanta, but it's still 1.5 mile fast oval. I think we've seen better racing at Texas, to be quite honest with you, in the past couple of seasons. So I'm actually looking forward to it.
Cool. All right. So hopefully we'll get Eric back next week as we go into the round of 8. And we will have 8 drivers left. So, CJ, appreciate it as always. I'll talk to you again next Wednesday.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.